The entire wall is clean, every square foot of it. You run your hand along the paint, and it comes back dry, smooth, nothing. Then you reach the corner of your closet, and your fingers stop. A 12-inch strip of wall, at most, where the paint has gone dark and soft, and the black rings have already started spreading behind the hanging clothes. The paint is the same brand, the same coat, applied the same year. The room temperature is the same. Nobody opened a window in that corner and not the others. And yet, that one strip of wall, right where two exterior surfaces meet, looks like something from a basement that flooded twice. That is not a stain. That is a message. And the message is not about your paint. Every year, people in houses exactly like yours repaint that corner. They scrub it with bleach, let it dry, roll on a fresh coat, close the closet door, and feel like the problem is gone. Some of them make it 8 months before the rings come back. Some barely make it 5. The mold returns at precisely the same 12-inch strip, at precisely the same height, with the same pattern. Same spot, same season, same result. And so they repaint again. According to data compiled by the Building Science Corporation, moisture-related interior surface problems that are addressed with cosmetic treatments alone recur in the majority of residential cases within 1 to 2 heating seasons. The coroner does not care about the paint. What that corner costs you, added up honestly, is not small. A single professional repaint of a closet interior runs between $150 and $300 in most markets, depending on prep work. If you're doing it yourself, you're still spending $15 to $25 in materials, plus the hours, plus the bleach, plus the primer, plus the second coat, because the stain bled through the first. Do that every 12 to 18 months for 5 or 8 years, and you have spent more than enough to have fixed the actual cause on the first try. More than money, you are living with a surface that is actively producing mold spores inside a closed space where your clothes hang. Mold, at that concentration in an enclosed, low-ventilation space like a closet, is not a cosmetic problem. It is an air quality problem that sits inches from the items you put against your skin every morning. The obvious answer, the one most people land on first, is that the paint in that corner is defective, or that the closet needs better ventilation. Both of those feel logical. A closet is an enclosed space. The air inside it moves less than in the rest of the room. Clothes trap moisture, so the reasoning goes that the corner stays damp because air cannot circulate around it, and the solution is to leave the door open more often or drill a louvered vent into the door panel. That reasoning is not entirely wrong, but it answers the wrong question. Ventilation does not explain why the mold is at that specific 12-inch strip and nowhere else. If poor air circulation were the only cause, you would expect the entire back wall of the closet to show the same pattern, or at least the corners at floor level where air moves least. What you get instead is one vertical strip, right where 2 walls intersect, consistent across seasons. The location is not a coincidence. The corner is structurally different from every other surface in that room. 2 exterior walls, when they meet at a corner, create a geometry problem that the rest of the wall does not have. A flat section of exterior wall has insulation behind it, and that insulation is continuous. Warm interior air pushes against the drywall surface, and the insulation slows the transfer of cold from outside. The surface stays reasonably close to room temperature, but at the corner, where 2 walls join, the framing lumber stacks up. There are more pieces of wood, sometimes a doubled or tripled stud assembly, and wood conducts heat roughly 5 to 6 times faster than standard fiberglass batt insulation does, according to figures cited by the Building Science Corporation in their technical guidance on thermal bridging in wood frame construction. At that junction, the insulation is interrupted or compressed, the framing mass is larger, and the path for cold to travel from outside to inside is shorter and more direct. The result, confirmed by ASHRAE thermal analysis standards for surface temperature evaluation, is that the corner of 2 exterior walls is reliably the coldest interior surface point in any room in cold or mixed humid climates. Not the window, not the door frame, not the center of the wall, the corner. That matters because of dew point, which is the temperature at which the moisture already present in your room. Air changes state and becomes liquid water on whatever surface it contacts. ASHRAE guidance on condensation control establishes that when any interior surface drops below the dew point of the surrounding air, condensation forms on that surface. In most conditioned living spaces during heating season, dew point sits somewhere between 45 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on how people live in the space. The corner of 2 exterior walls in a house without targeted corner insulation can drop several degrees below that threshold on a cold night, even while the rest of the wall stays safely above it. Water appears. The surface stays damp. Mold follows within days. What makes it worse, and this is the part that catches most people off guard, is what is sitting against that corner. Clothes, boxes, a shelving unit pushed into the angle. The very things stored in a closet are also the things that seal the coldest surface in the room, off from the air in the rest of the space. The Building Science Corporation has documented repeatedly that blocking air movement against a cold surface concentrates condensation rather than distributing it. When a wool coat, a stack of sweaters, or a row of shoe boxes presses against the corner, the thin layer of air between the fabric and the wall cannot exchange with the drier, warmer air on the other side. That trapped pocket of air cools down to match the wall temperature, hits dew point faster, and stays saturated. The surface never gets a chance to dry between condensation cycles. Each night, the temperature drops outside, the corner chills, moisture deposits, and the materials in that pocket absorb it. By morning, the wall is wet. By spring, it is black. This is not a closet problem. It is a corner problem that happens to be hidden inside a closet. Here is how you confirm it in your own home before spending $1 on anything. You need one tool: an infrared thermometer. They cost between $15 and $25 at any hardware store, and they are accurate enough for this purpose. Open the closet, move everything away from the corner, and give the surface 30 minutes to reach its natural temperature without the insulating effect of the clothes against it. Then take 3 readings. First, point the thermometer at the center of the largest flat wall in the room, away from any exterior corner. Second, point it at the interior corner of the closet where the 2 exterior walls meet, at about shoulder height. Third, take a reading at the center of the closet back wall. Write all 3 numbers down. According to Building Science Corporation guidance on diagnosing moisture problems through surface temperature measurement, a difference of more than 3 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit between the corner and the flat wall surface is enough, under normal indoor humidity conditions, to produce recurring condensation at that corner during heating season. If your corner reads 5 degrees colder than your flat wall, you have found your mechanism. If it reads 7 or 8 degrees colder, you have found the reason your mold comes back every single year. Now you fix it in order of what it costs you. The first thing costs nothing. Move everything away from that corner. Not just the items touching the wall, but anything within 8 to 10 inches of the corner surface on both sides of the angle. You are restoring air circulation to a surface that has been sealed off. This alone will not solve the thermal bridge, but it removes the aggravating factor that turns a cold surface into a permanently wet one. Clothes on a rod, not pressed into a corner. Boxes on a shelf, not stacked against the angle. This is not a permanent fix. It is step 1, and it matters. The second step costs roughly $30. At any hardware store, you can find rigid foam insulation board, typically sold in 2-inch or 1-inch thick panels. Cut a piece to fit the corner angle, floor to ceiling, and secure it to the wall surface before replacing any storage. This adds insulating value directly at the point where the framing creates the thermal bridge, and it raises the surface temperature of that corner. A 2-inch layer of extruded polystyrene foam board carries an insulating value of roughly 10 per inch of thickness, according to figures cited by the Building Science Corporation, which is substantially higher than the wood framing it is covering. A layer of that thickness, applied over the interior corner surface, is enough in most cases to bring the surface temperature out of the condensation range during a normal heating season. Sand the edges, cover with drywall tape, and joint compound if you want it painted. And you have addressed the cause, not the symptom. The third step, for corners that are severely bridged or in climates that reach very low winter temperatures, involves opening the wall and adding continuous exterior insulation, or improving the corner framing to include more insulating material between the studs. This work runs from $250 to $400 depending on scope and whether you hire it out. This is the permanent version of what the foam board does temporarily, and it changes the thermal behavior of that corner for the life of the building. Here is what you must not do. Do not paint over the mold without treating the thermal bridge first. This is the most common mistake, and it is the reason most people repaint that corner 3 or 4 times before giving up or selling the house. Mold is not a surface material. It is a living colony that responds to moisture and temperature, not to paint. Painting over it encapsulates the surface temporarily. But as soon as the new coat experiences the same condensation cycle, the same corner chilling, the same pocket of trapped air against cold drywall, the mold grows through the new layer, not behind it, through it. The coating fails faster the second time than it did the first, because you have painted over a surface that never fully dried, over organic material that was still biologically active under the primer. Fix the temperature first, then treat the mold, then repaint, in that order. The 12-inch strip in your closet has been trying to tell you something every single year. It is not telling you that you bought bad paint. It is telling you exactly where the coldest point in your wall assembly is, and it is marking it for you in a way that does not lie and does not move. The corner is the structural weak point, the place where the geometry of your house created a gap in the thermal protection, and where that gap is just wide enough and just cold enough to cross the line between dry air and condensation every winter night. Repaint it, and you restart the clock. Insulate it, and you stop the cycle. The fix costs $30 and an afternoon. The diagnosis costs $15. The mold has already told you where to look. The corner did not grow mold. The corner grew cold. Everything else followed. That sequence is not a metaphor. It is the physical mechanism that Building Science Corporation researchers have documented in wood frame construction across cold and mixed humid climate zones. Cold surface, ambient dew point crossed, condensation formed, organic material fed, colony established. In that order, every time, without exception. What gets missed is how small the temperature difference actually needs to be. According to ASHRAE guidance on surface condensation thresholds, a surface does not need to be dramatically cold to become a moisture problem. It only needs to fall below the dew point of the surrounding air. In a normally occupied room during heating season, that margin can be as narrow as a few degrees. A corner that reads just slightly colder than the flat wall beside it can be enough to sustain a condensation cycle night after night without anyone noticing until the mold colony is already established behind the stored items. That is why measurement matters more than assumption. You cannot feel the difference between a surface at 58 degrees and one at 54 degrees. Your hand cannot detect it. An infrared thermometer can, and it gives you a number you can act on. Point an infrared thermometer at the corner where two outside walls meet in your coldest room, and then at the center of the flat wall beside it. Write both numbers down. Tell me both temperatures in the comments below this video. Not because the data is being collected for any study, but because when you see your own numbers written out, the mechanism stops being abstract. The corner stops being a stain. It becomes a surface temperature. And surface temperatures can be changed.